All right, I'm live here on the webinar, Practical Magic for Entrepreneurs. And this is subtitled Doing the Impossible. You want to do the impossible? All right. Hello and welcome to Practical Magic for Entrepreneurs, Doing the Impossible. I'm Sage Lee. I'm going to let you see me for just a second. There we go. Hi. Welcome. I'm glad that you're here. We're having a little technical difficulty, and we had some technical difficulty this afternoon, and I didn't realize that we were having it until it was too late. So you can see the replay for the afternoon one, and you can see the replay for this one as well. But we're having trouble getting the live broadcast, which says it's live here, to go live for you. So we're sending out an email right now. Hopefully we'll get folks who wanted to come to the broadcast on for us. So I'm going to actually go back to the screen share that I was doing, because I have a lot of material to get through with you today, and I'm really super happy that you are here. So here we go. Welcome. Again, welcome to Practical Magic for Entrepreneurs Doing the Impossible. Now, this is not for people who are already doing the impossible, although it may feel like you're trying to do the impossible. It's actually easy to do the impossible. In fact, easier to do than anything else. So I'm going to just go through a few things about how to tell if you're actually in the right webinar. So maybe you've gotten tons of business education, but something is still not working. Or you are stuck at a level in your business. Like sometimes it happens where you reach a certain point, like a mid-six-figure point or a seven-figure point, and you just can't get your business past whatever's keeping you there at that moment, right? At that holding place. Also, you're in the right place if it seems like sometimes somebody else is holding the keys to the way things work. It's like you're doing the right things and you're not getting the result that you want. That you feel like you're doing all of the right things, but you can't make your life and business work. So somebody else is holding the keys. You're doing the right stuff, but you can't make it work. You are stuck at a level and can't get past whatever's keeping you at that level. And you've gotten tons of business education and something's not working. Well, I have a secret for you that should not be surprising. What you really want is magic. It's magic. Now, magic is not a bunch of people running around with wands that have sparks that spew out the ends of them. Magic is actually something that I will define for you later in the webinar. I'm going to give you some basic education about magic, which is actually just ancient technology that has been used really for centuries and used quite effectively, I might add, until science came along around 350 years ago and told us that what we were doing wasn't working, even though it actually was. So you could actually know everything you wanted to know about magic 1,000 years ago if you were a priest or if you were a wealthy person. They knew how to make this stuff work. They knew how the universe worked, but they didn't share that information with the people. But things have changed now. And the knowledge that used to be only available to the few is now available to everyone. But you must have eyes to see it and ears to hear it. Now there's a quote by Arthur C. Clarke that goes like this. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. Any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So let's actually see what Arthur C. Clarke is actually saying here. Now, with any sentence that has is in the middle of it, you can actually exchange the subject and the predicate. So we can actually just start by saying magic is indistinguishable from any sufficiently advanced technology. Well, that's already a kind of radical thing to say, right? Right? Magic is indistinguishable from any sufficiently advanced technology. But what if we do this? What if we just leave out, like, isn't it if we can't make a distinction, is that distinction really important? Like if we can't tell the difference, is the difference really important? So magic, if we take this and move it around linguistically, says magic is advanced technology. Magic is advanced technology. So I'm going to spend the next few minutes telling you why this is not such a radical idea. In fact, I think by the end of the video, you will agree with me that the technology of magic is very powerful indeed. Now, if we know where to look for the magic and we know what magic really means, it's easy. So I want to define magic in a little bit. I want to define magical tools, what they mean. And finally, I want to say what I think a wizard is. Because it's no surprise to you, you already know by now that I have a school for wizards. So who is that school for? It's for you. So let me just continue by saying I think you are a wizard. Yes. Despite what you might think, and I'm actually going to come right back to you and show you my face. You are a wizard. You are. And by the time we get done with this call, I think you might actually agree with me that you are. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. I'm going to show you this sort of wizardy looking picture of me as we do that. Here we go. Oh, there we go. Share. I'm sharing. Okay. There's me looking all wizardy in the outdoors, which is where wizards spend a lot of time, by the way. One of the things about me is that I've always been a maker. I've always made things. Now, sometimes these things were practical and sometimes they were impractical, at least on the surface, right? And that's what art is, really, is just some impractical stuff that's beautiful, right? Now, as you'll learn later, maybe not in this webinar, but a future one, creativity is one of the primary reasons that we exist on the planet. Now, I drew things. I drew things on paper. I cut things out of paper. I sculpted things with paper. I even drew this giant mural on the wall of my room when I was a teenager. And little did I know that all this creativity was preparing me for an apprenticeship in wizardry. Now, my parents didn't know what to do with me because I was the Energizer bunny of creating things. I didn't have enough allowance. Here's an example, right? I didn't have enough allowance money to order these big blacklight posters for my room. So I took these tiny little drawings of the blacklight posters and I used my blacklight tempera paints and I created my own. Now, this was my first inkling that I might have some wizard abilities, right? I wanted something. I wanted the blacklight posters, but I couldn't get them through the normal channels. So I simply created what I wanted with a new and different set of materials, right? This is how the universe works. You want something and you end up getting it, and it might not be the way that you originally had planned to get it, but I was perfectly happy with my little blacklight posters. And in the meantime, I'd gotten to be a much better artist by doing this amazing process of creating the blacklight posters. Now, don't worry, because you don't have to be an artist of any kind to do this process. And you all knew how, or even a maker of anything, right? But you just have to know how to keep an open mind about how you show up in the world creatively. Now, as I got older, I began to notice that my ability to visualize things and then have them come into being was actually pretty profound. I'd stare at a candle flame and I'd imagine the face of the person that I was supposed to meet next. And then, like clockwork, I would meet them. Sometimes that day, sometimes a few days later. Now remember this, because part of the manifestation process is consciously forgetting about what you've done and allowing the unconscious to sort your world for you, right? I'm going to say that again. Part of the manifestation process is consciously forgetting about what you've done and allowing the unconscious to sort your world for you. Now, in my 20s, I made a pronouncement, like people in their 20s do sometimes. I made a pronouncement, and I said, I want to be a homeowner by the time I'm 30. And this was in the late 80s when, home prices were such that a 20-something couldn't afford to buy a house, and especially on the California coast, and especially, since my parents were in no position to finance me, I had no obvious resources. But that didn't stop me. I was unstoppable. I called a real estate agent who was the mother of a friend of mine, and I had her show me houses. And she did the math, and she said, you don't have enough money to own a house. And I said, that's okay. Let's just look at the houses anyway. And I'm sure that she thought that I was nuts, but I knew that I wasn't, because I knew that what was happening was I was formulating what I wanted and acting as if it was true. In fact, to me, it just was true. And then quite by accident, I came into enough money so that I could put down a 25% or more down on the house that I was interested in purchasing. And I was able to purchase a house when I wasn't even working. Isn't that amazing? So in addition to this practical aspect of magic, which is let me basically do almost any job that I want to have in the world and achieve actually some pretty good success at it. And despite the fear-mongering of some of my best friends, when they were just trying to help me, I know, when they said, that's impossible. I'd say, that you can't do that. I'd be leaving a corporate job to do something else, and I'd say that you can't do that, right? Want to produce an art performance piece based on people's experiences with no script, and they would say, that's impossible. You can't make theater like that. But fortunately, I never believed any of them. And I want to transmit some of that fearlessness to you. So let me give you these definitions so that you'll know kind of how my world works, right? So these are some pretty detailed descriptions of wizard and magic. So a wizard is a person of either gender, yes, equal gender for wizards, please, who is living their life the way life was designed to be lived, with a balanced feeling of power, and with the knowledge and skills to do other things others might think impossible. Now, I thought about what to leave out of this definition, and I can't think of anything, because if you live your life the way that life was designed to be lived as a creative engine, then, and you have a balanced feeling of power, not a feeling of like overburdening greed or overburdening worthlessness, right? You have a balanced sense of power. You understand how the world works. You're living in it the way that the world was meant to be lived in. And you've gotten some knowledge and skills. And those knowledge and skills make you able to do things that are not impossible, but others might think are impossible. Now, magic, right, since we're on the topic of wizards and magic, is a set of tools and techniques that wizards can use to influence probability in the direction of what they desire. Okay, so what you're doing when you create magic is you are messing with the rules of probability. And if you think that no one can mess with the rules of probability, think of this. Life itself flies in the face of one of the basic laws of physics, the law of entropy. Life violates entropy by its very existence. So when we get to living prescient, sentient, self-aware beings such as ourselves, all bets are off in terms of what we can do to affect what science has called natural laws. And there's some different natural laws that I'll be going over in a minute that have to do with some different laws that have to do with how the universe is put together. Now, it's one of the unique things about the human mind that we have this ability, right? But it's the invisible world, and we can't map it directly. Now, what most people think of magic is actually a thing called legerdemain, which basically means hand magic. Actually, there's other forms of illusionary magic other than legerdemain, but I love the word legerdemain. And legerdemain, essentially, along with most stage magic, is in the business of hiding the truth, right? It's in the business of hiding the truth. It's about tricking the audience, right? It's about misdirecting that fools you into thinking that something is true when it's not. Now, wizards can use some of these same techniques that magicians use, but learning to live in harmony with the laws of the universe, including the natural forces on the planet, is what will give you the real power that you desire. And one of the things that we must do, or that I must do, is to teach this power responsibly, right? And one of my other hobbies is I track modern scientific discoveries and I compare them to the wisdom that metaphysical science has been saying for, well, not just decades, but millennia. And what I've discovered is that modern science is just beginning to discover the very things that metaphysical science has been telling us for years. Now, one of the most famous and interesting of these is the notion of fractals. Now, fractals are, I'll spare you the textbook definition of fractals, but fractals are things that are self-similar regardless of scale, right? So if we look at these little mathematically produced fractals on this slide, you'll see that, if we look at this large zone, then it's very similar to the little small zones that are inside of it, right? So it's self-similar in many scales. And what this essentially means is if you zoom way in, say on a coastline in Google Maps, it's going to look really similar than if you're zoomed out of the coastline, right? It's self-similar at different scales. Now, this is related in ancient technology to the teaching from the magical world that says that which is above is similar to that which is below. And sometimes it's actually shortened to as above, so below. As above, so below. So stay tuned, because I'm going to teach you some things in just a few minutes about these things in the School for Wizards, right? Manifestation, spells, incantations, rituals, and something mysterious called correspondences. Now, correspondences can seem strange until you remember that that which is above is similar to that which is below, right? There is a correspondence between above and below is actually where we live in the kind of mundane world. And above, even though it's not really directional like that, is the invisible world. So we study what is there by studying what is here. Now, I'm also going to tell you in a couple minutes the common language of spells, incantations, manifestation, rituals, and correspondences, because it's really important that you get that this is not woo-woo science. This is actually stuff that's been recovered from the ancient world, but it's actually very powerful and very real. And there are parallels to this very real thing in science. So I want you to check out this notion. All of the power that ever was or will be is here now. And the technology that you need and want is here now. All the power that ever was or will be, not just that you need, but all the power that ever was or will be is here now. So check out if these things are true for you. Do you want to know how to run your business ecologically? To live your life the way it was meant to be lived? Maybe you haven't even thought about that. But many people, especially conscious business owners, want to run their businesses ecologically. Do you want to be active? And do you want to activate the power of love and magnetism to create a connection between, say, you and your clients or customers, or you and your partners, or just connection with the universe that's more powerful than any fear that you might have? Like, in other words, do you want your love and magnetism and connection to be more powerful than your fear? Do you want to be so empowered and sure of your purpose that you can serve your world without hesitation? Sometimes if we've got a big mission, it's scary and we're holding back. We're not quite all in. And finally, do you want to be able to navigate the terrain of the invisible world to get what you want in this one, right? So you just need to check out this question. Like, what does it mean to navigate the terrain of the invisible world? What it means is that you're actually dealing with things as they are, because this world represents a kind of illusion. And remember, the wisdom and the power that you need for anything already exists. Now, it is compelling, I admit, because I've done it myself. I even did it earlier today. It's compelling to pretend that you're powerless, that you have no magical power. But I am here to tell you that you don't have to be there. Because what is the eventual cost of pretending to be powerless? It's like that polar bear pacing in a non-existent cage because he doesn't realize the walls are gone. If you pretend to be powerless long enough, then you make yourself powerless. So I use the magical tools I teach every day. And it's really kind of cool. You know, I'm having a life where I get what I want. Even though people have told me my whole life I couldn't have what I want. I just didn't believe them. But in the past, I was reluctant to teach magic because you can see that it perhaps is not exactly the most normal thing, right? Like, most people are not talking about this stuff, right? Part of me would say, you can't do that. People are not interested in the invisible world. No one will believe you. And then another voice would come out of the blue and say, this stuff works. Why aren't you teaching it? And then I would talk back to the voice. By the way, never do that, right? It's a bad idea. Because then if you're walking down the street and talking to yourself, then people look at you funny. But I would say back to the voice, can't you see that I'm busy? I've got things to do. But apparently spirit is stronger than me. Big surprise, huh? And I finally said yes, and the School for Wizards was born. And all I did was say yes to the impossible divine paradox of my life. Now, yes, your life is a paradox. And a paradox is a collection of opposites that doesn't demand to be reconciled. Instead, a paradox begs to exist. Right, here's some lovely paradoxes for you. The ever-increasing step that goes up and up and up. The round dice that never actually land on a number. So they're a paradox and a paradise at the same time. I couldn't resist that little pun. And then finally, you have in the lower left-hand corner of the adjustment card from my Sage Tarot deck, the thing called the Devil's Pitchfork, which has, if you look at it at the bottom, it has room for 2 prongs on the top, and then if you look at it at the top, it has 3 prongs. An optical illusion that you can figure out how it works, but it still is confusing. So I designed the School for Wizards to address this paradox, not to fix it, but allow you to learn with it and essentially to teach you the wizarding skills that you should have been taught in childhood. And I'm going to teach you like several of those principles right now, right? And you don't want, believe me, sometimes I ask this question, but now I'm going to say you don't want to drift back into the Muggle world, right? So I'm going to tell you some rules and practices of living that have been laid out for thousands of years. Now, the keys to wizardry, like I'm going to show you, are buried in plain sight. They don't even have to be dug up, but they're only available to those who are open to them. Now, I'll tell you later about joining the School for Wizards and what you can do about that. But for now, I want to tell you about some of the principles of being a wizard. First, and get this with every cell of your being, everything is alive. Now, it's easy to think that everything's alive when you see these images of the formations of the suns and galaxies, and when in so-called primitive cultures couldn't see this level of detail in the sky, but they anthropomorphized the stars and made them human. But what if instead of believing the stars were human, that the stars were like us? What if we believed that they were alive in their own way? Not that they were like us, but we were like them. What if the earth herself was alive? Would you behave differently toward her if that's what you really believed? What could you do if you really believe this? So I just want to say, I'm not throwing this idea out as a discard. I'm saying, what if you really believed it? If you really believed it, how would it change your life? So the second principle here is act as if you are responsible for everything that happens to you. Now, okay, I get it. It might not be true, but go with me for just a moment and imagine how much more power to change a situation you would have if you acted as if you were the one responsible for your situation. Look at how this might work. Instead of saying, why did this happen to me? You can say, what did I do to create this? Right? How did I participate in creating this? Right? And you just get a different set of answers when you ask a different set of questions. Okay? The third principle here is, welcome to the devil. You'll understand why he's on the page in just a moment. You have to understand what I said before, which is that all the power that ever was or will be is here now. You already have the power you need to do what is given you to do in this life. And you draw from the same substance as the angels and the demons. Now, Napoleon Hill wrote an excellent book called Outwitting the Devil that was posthumously produced because it could not be published in his lifetime, because it was an actual dialogue with the devil. And in his dialogue with the devil, he says, hey, how come your enemy, what we call the divine, doesn't just vanquish you? And he says, well, I've got the same power as that one does, and I have the same power as you do. We all share the same power, right? It's all right in front of us all the time. The fourth is the there is a path and order to manifestation, and you must follow it. There's a path and order to manifestation, and you must follow it. And over on the right of this diagram is an example of the 4 Kabbalistic worlds of creation. And there are several School for Wizards things that will allow you to understand how all that works. I'm not going to go into the detail of that right now because we don't have the time. So the path of creation teaches you how to move from inspiration to planning to action. And this is how we can seemingly manifest what we want out of thin air. Have you ever noticed that when you ask for something, it sometimes shows up in exactly the way you ask for it? And sometimes it shows up really through lots of weird ways. Like, for instance, the buying of a house. You know, I bought my house, but I could not have predicted the situation that allowed me to purchase that home. Another person I know lives in a beautiful home, you know, gorgeous views of the ocean, multi-million-dollar property. I asked a relative of this person, you know, how she came to live in this place, and she said, oh, her guru gave it to her. I said, just gave it to her? Yeah, just gave it to her. No strings attached, no strings attached, no strings attached. So it was a situation where she couldn't have predicted that. But what she wanted to manifest was a beautiful home on the edge of the ocean. The universe is what did that creation. And you must keep the pathways open for the universe to do that. So the path of creation, this slide is kind of doubling for the for the notion that there's a path and order to manifestation. And one of the paths of the School for Wizards, which is the path of creation. And just this weekend, if you're in the San Francisco Bay Area, we are doing the path of creation. And I'll tell you how to get a hold of that and learn. I don't just lecture in these things. I actually have people do the path of creation while we're there, and we test what we've done. We test our results. So the second path is the path of personal power. Oh, sorry, that was the path of creation. A little God and Adam. Here's the path of personal power. This is the power of spells. And spells are designed to change the path of probability toward what you wish. And they're spoken, they're using the power of words, and they're different from incantations or prayers because spells are addressed neither to another person nor a higher power. But they are addressed to some actual part of the universe that can listen and carry out these things for you. Now, learning the path to power results in a technique to get clear and fast guidance on any topic, to study the scientific reason why magic actually works, so it doesn't seem like such a mystery. And you'll also get some foolproof structures to create magic that works to get you what you want, right? Now, you can take the personal power no matter where you are, right? You want to understand that you have all the power, right? That what I said before is true now, is that all the power that ever was or will be is here now. Now, in this moment. The third path that we're talking about is the path of prayer or incantations, which we don't have a slide for. This is the one for the next one. There's actually a lost way of praying, and it was taken out of scriptures around the world almost 2,000 years ago, but it's still being practiced by indigenous cultures. And science has already done a whole bunch of study about the effectiveness of prayer. And there's also some knowledge about the kind of prayer that's the most effective. And if you are following Abraham Hicks and the law of attraction, then the law of attraction is a kind of prayer. But there are some other aspects to that prayer that are important for you to be able to get the results from them. And also on the path of prayer, you learn how to protect yourself when you stir up powerful forces in the universe, right? There are actions that you can take that will protect you from the wrong stuff coming in, because when you start messing with the universe, then you start messing with all the power that ever was or will be. The fourth one, which is the one that this slide is for, is called the ritual path. Now, rituals, and we call this one the models of magic path, right? It's the ritual path because it's all about creating models for what you want. And this is how, I'm not going to get too technical on you, but this is how an entity called the demiurge can actually deliver to you what you desire, is because you've created a model for it, right? So this path will teach you how to create a model for anything you want. It will introduce you to the fivefold structure of every ritual. It will teach you how your community contributes to your wealth. And you also get to experience the power of ritual firsthand. Now, I want to say right now, even before I've told you anything about the School for Wizards, that it's really useful to understand how to do ritual and to do it regularly. And I have a special handout that I give people that is a handout that shows how these 5 ritual steps can actually turn the most boring business meeting into a powerful manifestation. If you want to get results, then actually follow these 5 steps when you do a business meeting in the corporate world, or a meeting with your team. It's absolutely incredible. So I want to remind you that the techniques that I'm sharing with you, even though they may seem just like ordinary, right? They are the same magical teachings that people like Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, Debbie Ford, Plato, Pythagoras, and leaders throughout time and history have used to create successful lives. They're using the same wizard skills that I'm teaching and that are available to all of us. And they didn't study this because they were great. They studied it to become great. And when you look at these great people, they're just people like you and me. There are usually a couple of things on the surface that are different, but what's really different is who they are at the deepest level. And this is the level that I'm inviting you to now. Now, I want you to remember, it doesn't take extraordinary intellect or extraordinary compassion or extraordinary physical strength to be a wizard. What it does take is a commitment to learning what needs to be learned and to stick with it. So I'm going to teach you a little bit more about correspondences. So remember, I reminded you about this thing a few minutes ago called as above, so below. And for hundreds of years, the tarot has been available to us. A few hundred years. And it's a sort of pictorial dictionary of the secrets of the hidden world. It's even said that a human being on a deserted island can learn everything she needs to know about the world as long as she has a pack of tarot cards. Now, there are many correspondences with each card in the deck, but I'm going to go through the correspondences of one, which is right back here at my paradox session here, or my paradox slide. Now, this card, I like it because it's right in the smack middle of the deck. The 11 card, adjustment, or sometimes called justice. And all of these cards together and the letters associated with them, the astrological signs or elements associated with them, each of these are correspondences that create a puzzle that you put together, right? It's a puzzle that I guide you with, but I'm just a guide. You're the one that's putting it together. You're the one that's having the experience. You're the one that's actually becoming acquainted with the mystery, right? A mystery is not a problem to be solved. It's something that incites wonder in us and something to get to know. So adjustment 6 sits at the middle of the deck, and it balances not only the items that are on the scale up there, but the whole set of trump cards as well. And there come times in business and in life when you need to pay attention to the ideals of justice and do what is for the greatest good of all. And when you draw this card, or since we're looking at this card now, why not pay attention to the adjusting force of justice, right? So no figure appears in this card. It's just a set of symbols that can help you in making judgments or adjustments. A scale sits on top of a transparent cube. And on one side of the scale is a glowing light, and on the other side is a white feather. Inside this mysterious transparent cube sit an impossible shape and a sword which rests upon the inside of the cube and casts a shadow. Now the scales you might not know, but you could do if you could do a little research, are the scales of the judgment of the Egyptian goddess Mat, who judged the souls of the dead before either admitting them to the afterlife or feeding them to a great hungry crocodile. Only if your soul was as light as a feather would you be granted admission into the afterlife. Now, this scale up here on the top of the cube encourages us to keep it light when judging others, or even when judging ourselves. Now, the sword and its shadow create a 30, 60, 90 triangle, which is the basis for the Pythagorean theorem, and it refers obliquely also to Pythagoras, one of the great grandfathers of Western mysticism. Pythagoras was not just a mathematician. He was very involved with music, with scales, with philosophy, and he was an adept at the natural sciences as well. So this is an indicator that justice, or the adjustment that we seek when a problem comes up in our business, is well-rounded and informed on all sides. Like that, in order for us to create justice, then we need to look at all 6 sides of the cube, which we can do here in this diagram, right? There are lots and lots of other correspondences that we could actually look at for this card. The first is the number 11. 11 is a prime number. No numbers can be multiplied together to get this number. And it's unique, like every situation in which judgment is required. Now, if you add the digits, you get 2, which you might not know, but is the number of the High Priestess card, and who is the librarian of the collective unconscious, right? So you're getting the idea that also, in addition to adjustment and justice, that if you're going to properly do this, you need to actually have admission to the intuitive world as well. Okay? Now, this strange shape inside the cube called the devil's pitchfork, I've already said before that it can indicate a paradox, right? It's a shape that can't exist in the real world, but only in the drawing. On the other hand, it exists in the ideal world, right? And no adjustment on the earthly plane is perfect. Like an ideal shape that can be conceptualized but not actually touched. Justice is an imperfect science. Now here's the question to ask when justice is called for. What can I do for the greatest good of all? And when you do this, you need to make sure that that you are included in the all. So I'm going to take a couple minutes to teach you or to tell you a little bit about the School for Wizards and what we do during the year. So the School for Wizards is a school that you can dip into as you please. There's a year-long program that's year one of the School for Wizards, and you can do that program for an amazing. It's an entire year program, and we meet twice a month. There's access to a private Facebook group, a secret Facebook group, not just private but secret, where we engage in the mysteries all month long. And we also go over the first year, the 22 archetypes of the major arcana, why they've remained hidden in plain sight, and we study their correspondences and apply them to our lives. And this program is called the Path of Initiation. Now, this Path of Initiation has monthly initiations that I assign to you, and you do and compare with others. You get a buddy to work with to make sure that you're doing your initiations. Now, there is nothing, of course, that says you have to step up and be a wizard or take this class or any other. There are plenty of people that say no to their whole wizard self. But here's the truth, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that in a moment, because in this course, you'll also go over those 5 paths. You'll be able to do spells, incantations, rituals, ceremonies of magic, right? We'll even do some chaos magic, which is designed to get the conscious mind out of the way and let the unconscious do the work of getting you what you want. But look, your life really isn't about you. It's about who you're here to serve. It's about your contribution to the whole. And when we begin to think of the whole world as alive, we begin to believe and think and understand that it's really about who we're here to serve and how we're here to fit into the whole. So I'm asking you right now if you're willing to wake up to your wizard self. Not for you and not for me, but for the people that you're here to serve. And I'm actually giving you some tools to do it, right? And I'm just going to say this stuff works. It has for thousands of years. We've stepped away from it for a while, but we are feeling the wind in our wings again, right? We now know why it works, because we're proving that wizardry is a science. Every week I go into Scientific American and find more and more things that we've been believing in the metaphysical science world, but that haven't been true in the regular science world, but they show up in the regular science world. Now remember, wizardry does not require you to have a big intellect or special brain wiring. And you might think, okay, everybody else can do this, but not me. I'm not the wizarding kind. But look, all these wizardy techniques, they're time tested. They're simple. They're obvious. Anyone can do them. They've been hidden in plain sight for centuries. So how do you study the invisible? Well, we don't study it. We actually provide opportunities for experience so that you can directly experience the power of magic yourself. You know, you'll get enough theory to understand it, but you're not going to spend your time in the School for Wizards doing theory. You're going to actually put this magic into practice from the moment you walk in the door, right? So learning these secrets of magic and wizardry is actually priceless. But I'm going to tell you that and I actually charge more than this for some of the events that I do for the year, but your basic entry into the School for Wizards is just $1,000 for an all-year program that starts in the month of June. All year. And each month you'll get a set of 2 cards. They're studied in pairs, and you study the power of each one and the power of them together. And it's not just esoteric study for no purpose. It's esoteric study for the purpose of understanding how you show up in your own life for yourself. Now, it's too easy to reach out and grab the ring, right? I want the ring of power, right? Give me the ring of power. Well, the ring of power is yours. It always is, but you must learn how to harness that power, right? Like you can imagine, and you don't even have to imagine, what am I trying to say? Tolkien wrote about the ring of power. So, in addition, there are several live events which you can find out about. But here's how to enroll for the School for Wizards at this point. You must send an email to me, and you can just say in the email, tell me more about the School for Wizards, and send that to sage@theschoolforwizards.com. Because the School for Wizards is not about hard sales techniques. Like it's not like you have to make a decision before you get off the call today. But what I'm hoping that I did is plant a seed for you, that this is something that will change your life forever, right? That this will allow you to continue down the path of your own destiny, very much like Michelangelo or Leonardo da Vinci or Debbie Ford or those famous Greek philosophers, right? And they actually did study this material. It's well known that Leonardo da Vinci did that, and by learning the ways that the invisible world operated, they were able to achieve success for themselves on the physical plane. So my invitation to you is that you actually follow in their footsteps and understand how the invisible world works and understand what your role and position is in it, right? It's an incredible opportunity for you to be able to thrive, to really know what your life is about. So with that, I want to give you a little exercise. I'm just going to give you this special bonus at the end of the call. So one of the ways that you can access magical power is to access your unconscious, but most of us can't figure out a way to access the unconscious without taking drugs or doing a hypnotherapy session. But there is a way that your unconscious speaks to you every 24 hours, and it does so in your dreams. And your dreams are, if you will follow me for just a second on this, your dreams are, I'm gonna stop sharing so that I can see your face again, or you can see mine. There we go. So dreams are the way that our unconscious speaks to us every day. So you can allow your dreams to tell you what is going on in the unconscious world. It's one of the initiations that we do in the School for Wizards. And there's a special shape that you trace with your finger, which I'm not going to give you on this call, but if you email me, I can tell you what it is. I can send you a drawing of it so that you can do this. And this is the symbol that even for people who say they've never remembered their dreams in their life, will allow them to remember their dreams. Here's the start. to this process, right? And it might take you a few nights to get this going, but you just remember to do this every night before you go to sleep. Say, my dreams are very important. You have to say this out loud. My dreams are very important to me. When I wake up in the middle of the night, it's because I've had a dream, and I will remember that dream and write it down. Now, in order to facilitate this, you must have a pad of paper or a journal next to your bed along with a pen. And if you are sleeping with someone who will be upset if you wake up in the middle of the night and turn a light on, you can get one of those LED pens that lights the page as you write on it. And write down your dreams. Do it for a week. Just do it for 5 to 7 days. And I would love to know what your results are here, because your unconscious is often telling you specifically what to do, and your unconscious is often telling you what the universe is here to do, right? It's dreams can be often for the collective and for our communities. So glad that you're part of the School for Wizards community. Thanks for listening to this webinar. I'm sorry that we had technical problems and that you are having to listen to it on replay, but we'll get those problems worked out before we end. And because we didn't get the chat thing working, there aren't any questions that I can answer right now, but I promise I'll do not just a replay of this video, but I will do a repeat live of the video where you can actually sign in and get your questions answered. Apologize for the delays, and yet I think we had a great time. Listen to the replay. Love you. Okay, bye-bye.